Hi, and welcome to the fourth installment of our LinkedIn Live series, ISM World 2024, The People You'll Meet. My name is Dan Zeiger. I'm a senior writer and copy editor for Inside Supply Management. That's Institute for Supply Management's member publication, and we're excited to have you here today. Now, our time is going to be with three of the people that you'll meet at the conference, which is April 29th through May the 1st at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. The next 30 minutes will be an interactive experience, enabling you to learn more about the conference, as well as to get to know Rosemary Coates and Amanda Rastovic and Angela Miller. We'll also be joined by her. She's ISM's Director of Marketing and Events, and she'll tell us more about how you can play your cards right in Vegas to get maximum ROI at ISM World 2024. So feel free to ask questions throughout today's events, and we'll be sure to address them by the end of our broadcast if we have time. Before we get started, feel free to comment in the chat feature on where you're joining us from today. And if you've already registered for ISM World 2024, you can make a virtual connection here today. Our first guest is Rosemary Coates. She's the founder and executive director of the Reshoring Institute, a nonprofit organization focused on expanding U.S. manufacturing. And she's also president of Blue Silk Consulting, a supply chain management firm, as well as a best-selling author and teacher of global supply chain strategy at UC Berkeley. And her session is titled Reshoring, Rethinking Your Global Supply Chains, and it takes place on April the 30th. Reshoring has been a hot topic since the start of the trade war, and especially during the pandemic. And this session will discuss the strategies, planning, and commitment needed to address the challenges of rebalancing your global supply chain. So let's bring in Rosemary. Welcome. Glad to have you with us today. Could you just give us a glimpse into your session and what attendees can expect to learn?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Dan. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this year we're going to talk about reshoring again, which has been on everybody's agenda, I think, for quite some time. But adding to that a new dimension, we're going to be talking a lot about cross-border commerce also with Mexico. We've seen significant growth in companies that had initially or previously sourced in China or across Asia, now interested in sourcing in Mexico. And the growth in commerce across the border has been phenomenal. In Laredo, for example, they've experienced 238% growth over the past year in trucks crossing the border at Laredo. So these kind of indicators and a lot of input from our clients tell us that there are many companies interested in sourcing and manufacturing in Mexico now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, the question of why it's become a hot topic is a pretty simple one. Anyone who's lived through the last 4 years, can understand that. But yeah, just to kind of elaborate a little bit on why reshoring is such a top of mind for supply managers and their executives at this time.
Yeah, so we started the Reshoring Institute 10 years ago after the presidential election between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney.
Mm-hmm.
Both Barack Obama and Mitt Romney were China bashing like crazy, telling everybody that it was
Mm-hmm.
all China's fault and the economy was tumbling because of China, and there were human rights issues and there was currency manipulation and so on. And all these things were true, but they really hadn't been brought to the surface or articulated in a way that made companies react. And so after that election, a lot of the clients that we were dealing with indicated to us they were interested in finding out if it was even possible to bring
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing back to the US. So we started the Reshoring Institute after that and focused on helping companies reevaluate their global manufacturing strategy. And prior to that, I've been helping a lot of companies offshore to China set up manufacturing there, find sources there. And I wrote a best-selling book about manufacturing and sourcing in China. But then after that election, there was a softening in the interest to go to China. And so we saw some slow but steady growth in reshoring over the next few years. But then the pandemic hit. And
Mm-hmm.
once the pandemic hit, it exposed so much risk in these long global supply chains that companies, I think, felt the urgency. Buyers, purchasing managers couldn't get parts. And so there was a significant shift once again in looking for domestic suppliers, or at least suppliers that were geographically closer, maybe Mexico or Canada. And so the growth in reshoring really taken off after the pandemic.
Yeah. One of the things that I've heard from supply chain people that I talk to is that, it's obviously been a big refrain the last 4 years or so. We have to decouple. We can't be as dependent on China. That is a lot easier said than done. China has a lot of well established ingrained manufacturing and supply chain advantages that you just can't easily replicate in other countries, whether you're talking Vietnam or, pick your country, or at least it's going to take some time. Could you just, discuss those dynamics about it, just how, supply chain organizations have to navigate all of these complexities?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we do well, we do at the Reshoring Institute, we're a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization, and we do a lot of research on
Mhm.
all kinds of topics related to manufacturing. And one of the things that we do well, I think, is to highlight issues and
Mhm.
problems. So, for example, when you're leaving China, if you want to move your manufacturing or source somewhere else, another country, and you may shut down a production line in China, you're going to have some issues there. It's not
Mhm.
easy to leave China. It's not like in the US where you can just tell your supplier, I'm not going to source anymore from you.
Mhm.
In China, you have to get permission. If you have employees in China, you have to pay out their employment contracts. If you have given them tools or dies or molds, you may never get them back. You probably will never get them back, even though you may think you own the tools and dies and
Mhm.
molds. You probably will never get them back, and it's because of the laws in China. And then, you may have quality issues as you're ending a contract. You may have all sorts of government issues and so forth. So you got to be very alert and well informed in how to do this so that you protect your own company if you're moving to another country. Vietnam is was kind of first in line in terms of
Mhm.
companies wanting to make a jump to another country, but the problem with Vietnam is they only have 90 million people
Mhm.
and they're kind of full up. It's really tough to find a factory that can take on new orders in Vietnam. They just are overwhelmed, I think, with business coming their way. But there are certainly other alternatives. Malaysia, Indonesia,
Mhm.
Taiwan, Thailand. These are all potential possibilities, and Mexico. And the advantage that Mexico has, of course, is that its proximity to the U.S. market, very close. And if you are buying things that are the product or growth of Mexico, you can bring items into the US under USMCA duty free. So if
Right.
you look at the comparison, if you're in China, or if you're sourcing from China, for example, excuse me, I'm fighting a cold here today. If you're in China, for example, and importing from China, you probably are paying a 25% penalty tariff on top of the normal tariffs for imports, which makes it economically more difficult to make that case.
Yeah.
From Mexico, if the product is the manufacturer, the growth in Mexico, or substantially transformed there, you can bring it into the US duty free. And
Mhm.
so that makes a significant cost advantage also. So, we're the Reshoring Institute. We advocate for manufacturing in America. That's our thing. We try to help companies understand where there are roadblocks and where there are potholes and things to avoid when you're moving manufacturing back to the US. And that's our preference, is to manufacture here. But we also recognize that in a lot of cases, you're looking for a low cost environment that just can't be achieved in the US. And so Mexico's a good alternative as a result.
Right. Um, You talking about Mexico. We had a commenter put in the chat, noted that U.S. imports from Mexico did exceeded those from China
Right.
last year for the first time in a while, and there have been a lot of documented stories on Chinese economy has been a little sluggish, and then as we are recording this today, the President Biden is in Phoenix to tout semiconductor production, domestic semiconductor. So there are a lot of dynamics. Just kind of give us an update, just how do those, just recent developments kind of fit into the whole reshoring conversation?
Yeah, so with respect to China, so there's no question that China
Mm-hmm.
is very advanced in terms of manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
Infrastructure is fantastic. I mean, you see 12-lane freeways and highways everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The ports are amazing. These huge, sophisticated ports, sophisticated manufacturers. All of that is true about China.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, we are working hard, I think, in the U.S. to catch up in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
The infrastructure bill will put a lot of money into our infrastructure in the U.S. and help us compete with roads and bridges and ports and advanced technologies such as semiconductors. The CHIPS and Science Act is infusing billions of dollars into manufacturing semiconductors in the U.S. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of that is in the evaluation of risk of China taking over Taiwan, because TSMC, or Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, TSMC, the
Mm-hmm.
largest semiconductor manufacturer in the world by far. And if China takes over, I guess I should say, when China takes over Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
um, they may restrict those exports to the US. So it's really important for us to rebuild that capability in the US, and we are doing so, although it will take 5 to 10 years probably to build enough capacity to completely support activity here. There's a lot of dynamics, and as you know, business dynamics, business goals, business cyclical
Mm-hmm.
parts of it. Everything changes all the time. So what we talked about last year in terms of reshoring and the importance of it has shifted now to also including Mexico, for example, looking at multiple other country options. All
Mm-hmm.
these things have changed. There's a lot of activity going on.
Yeah. Well, I know there's going to be a lot of great takeaways, from your session and others, but I just wanted to ask in general, obviously you're a veteran of many conferences like ISM World, just to, what are the benefits of, attending that and, kind of spending time with your peers in the profession.
Yeah, what I like to do when I do lots of public
Mm-hmm.
speaking, what I like to do is introduce a lot of ideas. And so, we'll be talking through potential alternatives, what
Mm-hmm.
the concerns are, what you have to watch out for, and what the new trends are, all of that. So it's, really a session that's going to be full of new ideas and introducing a lot of different ways that you can solve your global supply chain issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Rosemary. I really appreciated it spending time with you today, and I look forward to seeing you at conference. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, Rosemary Coates is the founder and executive director of the Reshoring Institute. Her session at ISM World 2024 is Reshoring, Rethinking Your Global Supply Chains. And our next guest is Amanda Rastovic. She's a senior forecasting analyst with Mintec. She's got more than a decade of experience in risk management and has worked closely with a variety of companies to open markets, educate, and support their growth. She studied agricultural business management at Purdue University and has served on the National Grain and Feed Association's Finance and Administration Committee. And her session is Price Forecasting, the key to successful hedging. And words like volatility, trends, and speculators have a profound impact on price forecasting, as well as decisions on hedging. And in this session, Amanda will discuss key topics, most importantly, where prices go from here. So welcome, Amanda. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, just give us a brief overview on the price forecasting session and, what conference attendees can expect to take away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here today. I am excited to have the opportunity to meet some of you before we're in Vegas for the conference. My session is focused on the design, building, and implementation of a strong dynamic risk management program that is based on the ability to forecast prices. So we're going to start by going through the factors that affect a risk profile. Many companies, I've always been surprised to find, don't have a hedging protocol in place. So there may be several departments with a multitude of buyers, and they're all operating in a siloed environment. So little is known about what they're doing outside of that small team unless something goes wrong or someone quits and there's a bad trade hanging over the company. That's when people start to go, what are we doing here? Because there's not a risk management program that's written down that everyone is aware of. So it's my hope that when I lay out these factors before them, that they can identify changes that need to be made in their own system. I'm going to show attendees the pieces of the Mintec price forecasting methodology that can improve their purchasing decisions, which gives companies the ability to save millions of dollars. And it gives them the ability to use and allocate resources in different ways. So, building on top of that, I'm also going to go through a couple of client stories and show how a dynamic hedging risk management profile would have helped them avoid some of those pain points. And then lastly, I'll cover some steps of building a program and the necessity of continuously monitoring that program.
Yeah. One of the focuses of your session is aligning forecasting efforts with dynamic risk management. Could you just, talk about how those two fit together?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have talked on it before, or Rosemary and you touched on it. The inspiration of this came from the difficult market environment that many companies have faced the last few years. The volatility has made procurement especially difficult. Supply shortages, increasing prices, that makes our risk management more important than ever. So putting that program together now, when the struggles of COVID are fresh, it helps mold that program and helps you to feel, more inspired to develop one to fix these existing issues in your program. So, additionally, on top of that, a lot of companies are dealing with the fact that consumers are starting to change their purchasing habits. There's a lot of fear in the marketplace. They're opting for lower cost goods and services. And, to keep costs low in this environment, procurement individuals, they really have to be on their A game. If companies can't forecast prices accurately, then they can't successfully hedge and they can't remain competitive, in their industry. So, we see a lot of prospective and even current clients who who struggle to bring their risk management up to date and with the dynamic ability to stay constantly moving when we see volatile price movement. So, we want them to take advantage of learning how to accurately forecast prices with the tools I'm going to discuss to keep them competitive.
Right. This just a question that came into my head, because of, your specialty in agriculture, a lot of people that, maybe didn't study supply chains before the, pandemic, probably don't realize this, but even taking away the COVID year 2020, 2019, 2020, that period was a historic time for supply chain disruptions, even before COVID even factored into the equation. It was almost, I don't want to say unprecedented, but, it was as high, historically high. And, for agriculture, I just on the top of my head, the trade war obviously impacted Midwestern farmers, and soybeans were a lot of headlines on that. Droughts are a significant challenge that we've seen in the last few years, especially with climate, and then just demand forecasting and demand variability in general are just very hard disciplines, even in the best of times to read. So could you just talk about all those dynamics and just what makes this such a challenge? In general, even in the best of times.
Yeah. I mean, we live, in a day and age now where information moves so quickly. And
Hmm.
that makes, like you said, things so volatile. And we're always going to have what we call black swan events.
Hmm.
They're hard to see coming, but that is part of, being flexible in the approach that you take with your hedging and with your price forecasting.
Hmm.
Even through all of the craziness of the market. You'll see, like right now, an outbreak of bird flu. You'll
Hmm.
see prices respond immediately to that. But what we're trying to do here and show clients and attendees at the conference is take a step back, look at the market as a whole. Yes, right now it hurts, but
Hmm.
what does that look like in the broader picture? And how can we, if we've missed the mark, say on hedging, chicken US or whatever the product is, what can we do with soybean meal? What can we do with maybe the packaging for that chicken, once it's moved through its life cycle? If it's a laying hen, what do we need to do about hedging our risk on eggs? Just because one piece of the puzzle is totally out of whack, doesn't mean that we should panic.
Hmm.
And that's part of, being dynamic, looking at each and every piece of your model and seeing where we can make up some of that difference. Is it fuel? Is it packaging? Is it, the ingredients that go to feed? We need to take a look from 30,000 feet up to try
Hmm.
to remove the noise because there's a lot of noise. So,
Yeah. Well, I obviously don't want to give away the game or give away the
right.
farm too much, but just what are some of the tools that that you'll be speaking about at your session that supply managers and their companies can use to kind of stay ahead of price forecasting and risk management, especially as we've talked about throughout our conversation, the way the market can change so dynamically and quickly.
Yeah. I mean, price forecasting, it should be a section of that program. What we
Hmm.
like to ask clients is, how have you been performing on your hedging for, say, the last 10 years? If
Hmm.
you don't know the answer to that question, that's where you need to start. You know, I always like to think of it as you can't figure out where you're going to go unless you know where you've been. So, hedging 100% perfectly, that's not attainable, but putting together a system and using price forecasting, looking at what your risk profile allows you to do, and then if you can look at what your customers are doing, what do you need to be doing to remain competitive with them? If they can hedge 100% 18 months out, well, I'm not saying you need to follow that exactly, but you need to be somewhere comparable that allows you to be on the same playing field. So, and those are some of the factors that we'll dive into, when I go through how to build one of these programs that fits your company specifically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as I mentioned, I even in the best of times, it's a challenging discipline. I have great respect for supply management professionals who get in those weeds every day. It's definitely one of the hardest things about the job, and I know people that would attend your session would get a lot of good insights on that. So thanks
Absolutely.
a lot for joining us.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, Amanda Rastovic, she's senior forecasting analyst with Mintec, and her session is price forecasting, the key to successful hedging. Our last guest is, well, if I needed to find one person who could tell us about what conference attendees can expect in Las Vegas at the conference and, to get the maximum value out of the experience, this is the person I would pick. And, I see her most every day. She's Angela Miller. She's the director of marketing and events at ISM. And Angela, take it away. What do we need to know about conference to get the most out of it?
Thanks so much, Dan.
Mhm.
It's truly exciting. And to hear Rosemary and Amanda speak about their sessions, I think that you guys are getting just a taste of what to expect at conference and the caliber of the content that you're going to get. Every year when we kind of work on the design of the event, we always come up with a new theme. And a lot of this is through working through our practitioner committees and councils, in the surveys and the feedback, as a professional association. And this year is Reimagine. And I think Amanda and Rosemary, in their examples of just teasers of what they're going to be talking about at the sessions, really are great examples of reimagining. Really in the profession today, as we're seeing and hearing the stories and talking to the practitioners and working on solutions, you're really hearing that the fundamentals are still so critical and important, but there is this almost reset around rethinking, reimagining your approach. And so really the conference is about fostering this environment to help people reimagine. The world is crazy, it's moving at a crazy pace. And sometimes in order for us to be strategic, in order for us to get the skills and to help foster that innovation, we need to stop for a moment. And that's what the ISM World Conference is all about. It's about reimagining by pulling in thought leaders and experts and fellow practitioners to have this environment where you can share and learn. Some of the highlights, we're doing everything from, we're bringing in some best-selling authors that are talking about more team leadership. No matter what you are, what your title is in the organization, but how you can kind of become a supercharged leader. A lot of us have to be collaborative in our business environment, so we need certain skills to be able to be successful. And then we're going to follow that up. We've actually worked with Clean the World and partnering with them to do a charity team building event where we're going to be able to develop, and create wash kits. And if, we're going to have music, it'll be a lot of fun. But we're able to give back to the local community. We're going to have workshops on the Monday that are going to be really in-depth discussions, everything from generative AI and practical use. We have a engineer coming in from Google that was actually part of the development of Google's version of a generative AI. Down to discussing supplier diversity programs and new approaches and how ESG now plays in that. And we are going to be doing networking sessions. So it's kind of a whole environment around fostering networking, but we're actually going to have facilitated networking from networking lounges where people can go through facilitated discussions, to our women's community, to first timers. So you can kind of meet up with friends right at the kickoff of the event. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are our breakout sessions, and we're going to kick it off with our opening general session with Ian Bremmer. So obviously, I think Rosemary talked a lot about sort of a little bit of the geopolitics and what's happening in the world and the impact that it has on the supply chain profession. So Ian Bremmer is going to kind of bring some interesting information to be able to present to everyone. And then we're closing out with Chef Jose Andres. And if you don't know, he's actually the founder of the World Central Kitchen, which you may have seen in the news, but he really talks about a creative approach to problem solving. So I think he'll not only be inspiring, but also kind of talk about his aspects of how they can creatively come together in difficult situations to be able to fulfill their mission, which is, kind of helping to feed the world. So we've got amazing breakout sessions. We have a lot of celebration points. We even have a fun closing party that we're going to have at Hakkasan, where we're going to reimagine Studio 54. So Dan, can't wait to see you on the dance floor.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a white silk suit, Travolta style, but I was going to mention you had talked about the sessions and the workshop and the discussions beforehand. That was the thing that stood out to me about last year's conference in Texas. Some of the pre-session discussions, a hot topic was on artificial intelligence, and a lot of the executives that were there were saying, we got to get moving on this now. We can't wait for academia to catch up. We can't even wait 6 months. We've got to, and that really started not that AI wasn't a hot topic to begin with, but it really generated a lot of discussion there at the conference, inspired some articles that we wrote in our magazine about it that were really well received and really, served our community. So it just emphasizes the point that Angela made. I mean, you don't need to be at a quote unquote session or a keynote to get great insights, that you can use, that you can walk away with, actionable insights that you can use to help your company. So that was the thing that stood out to me. And I'm sure that'll be the case again this year in Las Vegas as well.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, just on that topic alone, Dan, we have a workshop that's talking about governance. I mean, there's a lot of, swell around, how do you, even protect yourself because if people are concerned about cybersecurity. So we've got a workshop that's going to really kind of delve into that. We've got sort of the practical use. How do you even get started? And this could be, from the most senior leader looking at it holistically down to, just somebody on the line that's trying to actually utilize this to help augment and be more productive. And we have, a VP of procurement from Walmart that's going to be in a session that's going to be talking about his own personal experience of utilizing generative AI. We've got a lot of solution providers, a lot of suppliers that are going to be there, and we segment this off into different neighborhoods so that if you got certain types of challenges that you're trying to solve for, you can head right to a neighborhood and find a number of different solution providers, suppliers that could help. So it's really going to be, a fun environment, obviously in a fun place in Las Vegas, and we're really looking forward to seeing everyone.
Yeah, lots to do. Well, hey, thanks, Angela. I appreciate it. Thanks to Rosemary and Amanda and Angela for joining us, and a huge thank you to you for joining us. And we hope you found some great takeaways and some information that was just shared by Angela about how you can join us and make the most of ISM World 2024 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. If you've already registered, we look forward to seeing you. And if you haven't, you can do so and get more information by visiting ismworld.org/annual. And if you'd like to learn more about the sessions at ISM World 2024, we'll have another LinkedIn Live event next Wednesday with another person you'll meet in Las Vegas. So for Rosemary Coates, Amanda Rastovic, and Angela Miller, as well as Robin Garrison, who helped us behind the scenes today, my name's Dan Zeiger. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.